After we've created widgets and displayed them in our application with the Geometry Manager, the last thing we'll need to do is tell the program what to do when a user interacts with that widget. A user interface that doesn't respond to users' actions wouldn't be very exciting. tkinter uses a process called event handling to execute specific functions when certain inputs are received from the mouse, keyboard, and other sources. In your tkinter program, you'll configure the specific events your program will listen for and respond to. These events can be things like mouse clicks, keystrokes, widget interactions, mouse movement, window resizing, and so on. For each possible event the program is concerned with, it will need to define a handler method or function that will be executed when that event occurs. For example, if your program has a form for the user to fill out with a submit button, the program will need to bind the event of that button being pressed to execute a handler function which submits the content of that form. When you call the main loop function of your top-level TK object, the program enters what is known as the event loop. The program waits here until it receives a notice from the operating system that an event has occurred, for example, when the user clicks on the mouse button. Then the program goes and executes the appropriate handler code for that event. After it's finished handling the event, the program then returns to the event loop and waits for the next event to occur. If a different type of event occurs, for example, if the user presses a key, then the main loop will execute the appropriate handler code for that type of event. An important thing to keep in mind when writing handler functions is that the event loop is not able to handle multiple events at the same time. So, if a new event occurs while the program is still in the process of handling a previous event, it will not be able to handle that new event until after it has completed the previous handler and returned to the event loop. If multiple events occur while the program is outside of the event loop, then those events will be queued up to be handled when the previous handler has completed. For this reason, you should always strive to keep your handler code as short and quick to execute as possible. Otherwise, your user could find themselves in the undesirable situation of waiting for the GUI to respond. There are two primary ways to configure event handlers in tkinter. For interactive widgets that, by their nature, generate events that essentially require a handler, tkinter provides an easy way to configure command callbacks via the command property. An example of a widget with the command property is the button, because it's unlikely you would create a button that doesn't do anything when pressed. Configuring the command property tells tkinter what function or method to run when that button is pressed. For widgets that don't have command callback properties, you can still configure the widget to respond to certain events by using the bind method. Labels, for example, don't have a command property because they're not typically used for interaction. If you wanted to execute some handler code when the user puts their mouse over the label, you could bind it with the enter event, which is triggered when the mouse enters the region over the label. There's still a variety of events that you can bind to, which are related to keyboard and mouse actions. We'll cover those in detail in the later event binding section of the course.